One of the first things we did when we first bought this building was to start an AA group. Our meeting here is at 5:30 on Thursdays, and this year, of course, both Christmas and New Year's fall on a Thursday, as did, ironically, Thanksgiving. You might think that our little group would just not meet on those days, but nothing could be farther from the truth. No self-respecting AA group ever cancels a meeting. And if anyone asks about it, the reply is predictable. Some experienced member of the group will ask the rhetorical question, when you were drinking, did you ever drink on Christmas Day? Did you ever drink on Thanksgiving? Did you ever drink on New Year's? Even when we've had some really bad weather, and obviously our building is located down a country road that's not necessarily cleared when the weather's bad, so someone will call when we've had a little ice or snow and ask if the meeting has been canceled, and if I know them well enough to risk it, I'll say, when you were drinking, did you ever drink on a day when you were snowed in? What I've always loved about the recovery movement is that it is a disarmingly honest, realistic, and fact-based approach to spirituality. There are no holidays except for the anniversaries of your last drink, and every day is divided into 24 hours, and every hour is divided into 60 minutes, and you decide, sometimes, moment by moment, that you are going to preserve your sobriety and your sanity for 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. No one in the movement ever says, I'm never going to drink again, because ever is an awfully long time. But you say, with God's help, I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to drink this hour. I'm not going to drink this minute. They try to keep reality in manageable amounts. There's a lot of God talk in the recovery movement, but it is a reality-based spirituality that is rooted in the power of personal choice. In Scott Peck's famous book, The Road Less Traveled, he talks about a patient he had when he was an Army psychiatrist stationed on Okinawa. A soldier had been referred to him for treatment for alcoholism, but in their sessions, this sergeant kept blaming his drinking on the isolation of the island. So Peck asked him, well, what did you like to do when you were living in the United States? And the sergeant said, well, I like to fish. And Peck pointed out that fishing is actually very popular on the island of Okinawa. The sergeant insisted that he's on duty during the day, and he's only off duty at night. And Peck pointed out there are actually organized night fishing groups here on Okinawa. You can fish every day of the week if you want to. Changing tactics, the soldier said that what he really liked was to read. And Peck said, we have an excellent library right here on base. And the sergeant becomes angry and says, it's way too far away for me to go to that library. So in the end, the obvious truth emerges. There are lots of things to do on Okinawa. What he chose to do was drink. I never want to minimize the power of addiction, nor do I want to make light of the agony that is produced by mental illness, by depression, or other disorders. But this much I can confidently say. No one ever gets better. No one ever recovers from addiction. No one ever gets over depression. No one ever recovers from a mental illness until the point that they take complete personal responsibility for their own health and progress. If you're older than 3 years old, no one makes you angry. No one makes you depressed. Sure, people can be jerks, people can be mean, they can stab you in the back, they can lie and gossip, they can even steal or assault you. But anger or resentment is your choice. Sometimes suffering in life is inevitable, but misery is entirely up to you. Like this sergeant on Okinawa, the impulse of the addiction may be very real. It can be very powerful. It can be extremely painful. But the only opportunity for change is rooted in personal choice. It wasn't the island. It wasn't the military. It wasn't the people he was stationed with. He was choosing to cope with the pain of living by excessive drinking. And when that solution became a bigger problem than the issues he was trying to avoid, no one but him could choose to do differently. I have to admit that I was possibly more than mildly insulted about a year ago when I had to interview with a new doctor. Like a lot of people who changed insurance under the Affordable Health Care Act, I had to go to the marketplace and find a new physician. So in our initial meeting, my slender, attractive young doctor brought up the issue of my weight. I told her about my lifelong struggle with weight loss and gain. I told her about exercise plans I've been on, various diets and medication, some of which worked for a while, but none of which ended up in long-term success. And like some ancient Zen master, she just looked at me with a bit of confusion on her face and said, "Have you ever thought about being hungry and still not eating?" All of the diet plans that claim that it's simply a matter of eat less fat, eat less sugar, eat no carbs, some magical combination of foods that chemically interact to melt fat, these are all as absurd as the claims of this drunken soldier whining that there's nothing to do on this island. Sure, absolutely, eat less sugar. Avoid carbs, eat more natural vegetables and fruit, exercise more. But it still comes down to this: to feel hungry and to choose not to eat. Anything else that anyone says to you about dieting is engaging in self-denial. Yeah, I'm a stress eater. Yes, I grew up on Southern cooking. Absolutely, I have a sedentary job. I'm either driving, reading, or talking to someone. And yet what you see before you is the sum total of my personal choices, the choices that I make day after day. You don't become overweight between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. You become overweight by a lifetime of making the wrong decisions, one meal at a time, one snack at a time. You blow off going to the gym once, twice, 3 times, and pretty soon going to the gym is not something that you do anymore. Like our friends who attend our AA meeting, any real change that we want to effect in our lives will come to us one day at a time, and sometimes just an hour at a time, or a minute. That I'm not going to stop by the George's Donuts out there on the table. I'm going to make a choice this moment not to engage in a bad decision. So my friends, you too are the sum total of the choices that you make in life. If you struggle with depression, if you find that you're angry a lot, or if you can't maintain relationships, none of that will ever change as long as you blame external forces. If you tell yourself that your happiness depends on someone else changing, behaving differently, or being something else. As the Dalai Lama is famous for saying, to have an insight about one thing about yourself that needs to change is better than having an insight about 1,000 things in other people that need to change. As long as you are projecting your unhappiness on the behavior of someone else, you are back being a 3-year-old child refusing to take responsibility for your own life. Scott Peck says in The Road Less Traveled, it is natural for a human being to defecate in their pants. But if you want to have any relationships, you've got to learn not to do that. You've got to learn your emotions are natural, but you are in charge of your emotions. Getting upset and telling someone else that they have to change for you to feel better is like defecating in your pants and getting mad at someone else because it stinks in your house. Only you are in charge of your emotions. When I worked in mental health, we used a program, PET, Parent Effectiveness Training, to help parents to understand their children's sometimes bad behavior. And the program taught that there are 4 basic motivations for a child's misconduct. They're either seeking power or attention, they're making a display of inadequacy, or they're looking for revenge. Parents were encouraged to try to look at their children when their children are behaving badly and ask yourself, do they just need attention? Are they trying to gain power in the family, make the parent do their bidding? Are they trying to get revenge for something? Or, and the other one that is a little bit harder to see, a display of inadequacy is to show yourself as a failure so that somebody else has to take care of you. I don't know how that works. You do it for me. I taught these classes in a mental health center for months before one day when I was sitting in a church board meeting with some very dysfunctional conversation going on, and I realized that those 4 motivations for bad behavior did not actually have an age limit. It's more complicated in adults sometimes. Sometimes an adult has many layers of masks for their pain, but some people spend their entire adult lives trying to get revenge for something that happened to them when they were a kid. And so it's displaced, it's transferred to someone else. And you don't understand, why are they acting this way? Why? One of the longest church battles I was ever engaged in was we had a bad water cooler in the fellowship hall, and the argument was, do you spend the money to fix it or do you just replace it? And I thought there were a couple of men that were going to get involved in a fist fight. We spent months debating whether we were going to fix or replace the water fountain until one man just finally opened his wallet and threw down $300 or $400 and said, just buy another one as long as I never have to hear about it again. Some people feel that they've never accomplished in life what they should have. And so they're seeking power. They're seeking power sometimes in petty and disappointing ways without ever understanding themselves why they're behaving so irrationally. You should go to a faculty meeting at any small university if you want to see a lot of really intellectually gifted people acting like they're less than 5 years old. Some people are convinced that all they have to do is repeatedly display that they are failures and no one will expect anything of them, that they will then be taken care of. And some people just need attention, but they don't want to earn it. They want affirmation, but they don't want to do anything in particular to get it, so they just demand it out of you. They demand it in a way that lets you know that if they don't get the attention that they want, they're going to pick up their toys and go play elsewhere. But no one has ever actually been helped to mature and grow if people cave in to their childish misconduct. If someone caves in to your displays of inadequacy, and as a clergyman through the years, I've seen lots of family systems where, like, the wife doesn't drive. That way her husband always has to come home after work, take her where she always, and then if the husband has a stroke and can't drive anymore, suddenly she can drive. She hadn't been able to drive the last 40 years. Now she can drive. A lot of displays of inadequacy are a way of manipulating the people in your life. But if you cave into that, you're not encouraging maturity in the other person. If you cave in to your child's temper tantrums, their attempts to exercise power over you, or to inappropriately get attention, then, folks, you're not being a good parent. A good parent, because you have to reward the behaviors you want to see. So if you reward power seeking or revenge or displays of inadequacy or attention seeking, then you're literally encouraging that behavior. If you then cave in to an adult who is looking for revenge, power, display of inadequacy, if you do that, you are literally encouraging them to be a lesser human being. You are reinforcing the child in them rather than reinforcing the adult in them. I call these kinds of adult conversations an invitation to crazy town. And the best thing that you can do for someone you care about is to not accept their invitations to go to crazy town. Anytime that I forget that and I find myself in a shootout on Main Street in Crazy Town, I turn into an ordained version of Lewis Black, deeply desiring to just take an ice pick and shove it through my eyeball. That anytime that you're being asked to believe that a crazy conversation is sane, the cognitive dissonance makes you wish you didn't exist. It's often been quoted so much that it's become trite, but when Gandhi said, "You must be the change that you want to see in the world," that's true. Plato said that the society is an individual writ large. If you think society is sick, if society lacks ethics and values, the only way to change that is for us as individuals to be sane, to be mature, and to have ethics. If we want a healthy society that doesn't abuse the poor, that doesn't always fall back into warfare while killing the planet, and taking away basic human rights from minorities, then we have to choose to embody health. We have to choose to embody the change that we want to see in the world. This whole business of making New Year's resolutions really can be just like spitting into the wind if you don't take into your very soul the factual realization that you can change who you are through conscious choice. This saying of Henry David Thoreau I come back to over and over through the years. I know of no more affirming, positive thought in the world than the simple fact that a human being can change their character, change their lives by conscious choice. You can choose to change. The ancient Romans dedicated the first day of the year to a god about whom there's no fables, there's no myths, there's no stories that are told about the god Janus. And yet Janus appears in a lot of Roman art, always as two faces back to back, like two sides of a coin or two sides of a door. Janus represents not a story, not a myth, but a concept, the concept of choice. And like a door is either looking forward or looking backwards, choosing to go into a hallway to go one direction or another. Unlike the gods about whom there are elaborate psychological dramas, this god guarded only the reminder of your potential to change. And the Romans put it on a lot of their coins. Instead of images of the emperor, they had Janus because they wanted the constant reminder, you are who you are choosing to be. You are evolving in a direction. You're either letting your emotions make those decisions for you and ending up being someone you didn't want to be, or you're making a conscious choice to go in a direction that you have chosen. Your life does not have to be defined by neurotic fears, shallow friendships, consumerism, and ego battles. You get to choose. I've been a public figure for a long time. I know 100 people who would love to tell me how to be Roger Ray a whole lot better. And some of them just can't help themselves, just over and over tell me how to be Roger Ray. But there is one person on earth who holds a razor blade to Roger Ray's throat every morning, and that's me. So I'm the one that's going to have to make the decision about whether I shave or cut my throat. I'm the one that has to make the decision. And ladies, you may have to work on that metaphor to apply it to your circumstances. But the final responsibility for who I am depends on me. And if I'm going to be an authentic human being, I have to be who I have chosen, not who other people tell me to be. 2015 may be a year of huge social changes. We might actually manage to spend an entire 12 months without invading another foreign country. We might actually make major strides in mass transit, in alternative energy sources, in healthcare and fair wages. We may beat back some of the worst abuses of the war on drugs and the war on gay families. We may even get over some of our phobias about immigration. But if any of that is going to happen, we have to choose to be people of integrity. We have to choose that ethics is something that's very important to us. I know of no more encouraging fact than this, that you can become the person that you choose to be through your own conscious choice. And good luck with that. I'm cheering for you. Not that it matters, because if you've been paying attention, you know that my opinion is not really what matters here. What matters is what you choose to do with this year.
Amen.
You have been watching a progressive Christian video from the Community Christian Church of Springfield, Missouri. We encourage our viewers to donate to our efforts in feeding the homeless and hungry of our community. Write to us at Reverend Dr. Ray at AOL.com for more information.